Hello! I'm here to talk to you today about space. Office, commercial, and residential, not outer space. The only thing I know about that is that my ex-girlfriend told me I'm a Pisces. Buildings here in Champaign-Urbana are being condemned left and right, as well as across a lot of Illinois, due to mistreatment, mismanagement, or simply being left to rot. From the ghostly downtown of Cairo to the historic buildings of Chicago that they'll totally get around to renovating any day now. But there's a larger story going on here, and it's time we started talking about it. Among the worst offenders is this building, former headquarters of the News-Gazette between 1984 and 2020. When the News-Gazette went bankrupt in 2019, the building was sold for a reported $1.1 million to local businesswoman Laura Coleman. And according to the News-Gazette, Coleman failed to repay the property taxes the very next year, sticking the city with a bill of over $36,000. And this beautiful marble and granite structure that has been in downtown Champaign since 1912 has sat empty ever since. While I've not personally been affected by the closures, I have had friends who've had to break leases suddenly because their building was condemned overnight. And that gets a little hard to swallow when you realize that the city of Champaign gets millions of dollars every year from state government. There's a trash pickup happening. Just give it a sec. Just give it a sec. And that gets a little hard to swallow when you realize the city of Champaign gets millions of dollars every year from the state government that should, in theory, go to starting businesses to inhabit buildings such as these. Such as the $12 million that the city of Champaign received to build its new festival district right here along Neal Street. And while I'm sure that your dad is happy to have a place he can play with his Guns N' Roses cover band on the weekends, there are some questions as to whether or not that $12 million could have been better spent, especially as local businesses are closing left and right. That perhaps $12 million is a hefty price for the Illinois taxpayer to turn a slab of concrete, an old stretch of parking lot, into a nicer slab of concrete. Despite how beautiful many of these historic buildings are, many of them remain empty, and most that are filled are struggling, with many offices and institutions having fled to the outskirts of the city due to increasing suburbanization. And as a recession looms and transportation gets more expensive, that's a decision that Champaign and many American cities will have to reconsider. Behind me is Church Street Square, originally opened as Robeson Department Store. It went out of business in the 90s and was converted into office space for the dot-com era. And to this day, the interior looks very 80s. Not like colorful Stranger Things 80s, like shockingly brown 80s. The third floor is being rented by HQ, a subsidiary of IWG, which is based out of Switzerland. And if you've been to downtown Champaign recently, you've definitely seen these thirsty advertisements they have all over the place. And you might know their other more well-known subsidiary, Regis. According to an advertisement posted this week on Craigslist, HQ is offering desk rental for as little as $130 per month. And at that price, you have to think, on the one hand, they're definitely not turning a profit, and yet at the same time, it's definitely asking too much, because if all you need is a printer, can't you just go to the library? Other advertisements, also on Craigslist from the past 2 months, show the owner posting vacant office spaces for as little as $200 a month, fully furnished, utilities included. And given the current state of downtown, it's not a stretch to think they might be struggling for tenants. So, I've been making content here in Champaign for about 3 years now. But the catalyst that got me to start making content about the city itself was the closure of Champaign Park Apartments, a once thriving apartment complex in the city that was left to rot after being purchased by New York venture capital. By the time the buildings were condemned, not a single one had hot water, most didn't have running water, and some didn't even have electricity. 29 buildings had to be condemned. Not 29 residential homes, 29 apartments, 29 apartment blocks had to be condemned in one swoop. with Township Supervisor Danielle Chenoweth saying, quote, Champaign Park Apartments is a human rights disaster, a kind of level of precarity that I saw in Detroit. The city expects to spend over $75,000 in getting the residents back on their feet, mostly in rapid rehousing grants. And they hope to recover at least some of that money from the landlord themselves. Lawsuits are pending, and while I do trust the Champaign Attorney's Office to do everything they can, perhaps even drive all the way to New York City to throw a piece of paper at them and demand payment. But at the end of the day, this isn't on the foreign companies that we invite to come in and run our economy for us. Champaign, Urbana, Cairo, Bloomington, Normal, Rockford, Chicago, the entire Rust Belt is in a crisis of leadership. There are no great leaders fighting on behalf of the common man or cunning bureaucrats keeping the city profitable behind the scenes. Only professional grant proposal writers opening another office of begging the state for more money, which is why your tax dollars seem to keep going up, including your property taxes, while nothing ever seems to get done. While we can spend tens of thousands of dollars housing the homeless without actually housing them. Okay, this is totally unplanned, but literally as I am filming this, there is literally a homeless woman camped out in the heart of downtown, just out of frame. While we can spend thousands of dollars on pinup signs about African American suffering without solving it, which is why we spend tax dollars to renovate struggling buildings that remain unprofitable and beg for more money a few years later. And I hope we can do better. We should do better, Illinois. I hope we do.